What's up guys, Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is Fargo, Season 3, Episode 4, The Narrow Escape Problem. So yes, this is not tonight's episode, unfortunately. I'm going to try to get caught up as much as I possibly can with what little time I have right now. I know it sounds weird, I just said that I would likely have a lot of time on my hands, but as it turns out, I do not. So, I tried to get caught up before, well, at least as much as I can before tomorrow, but it looks like I was just able to get last week's episodes in before tomorrow. So, this is last week's episode, and it was really good. I had a little bit of prep coming into this because one of my mom's friends that I've known her for pretty much most of my life, but she's also a fan of The Walking Dead, so we talk about The Walking Dead, but she also watches Fargo. And so she was watching this season, and she's like, "Have you seen last week?" She was like, "Have you seen this week's episode yet?" And I'm like, "No." And she's like, "Just let me know when you watch it. And try to see if you can figure out who's doing the talking at the beginning." So I'm like, "Ooh, what's this gonna be?" And then somebody commented on my video last week and said, "Let me know what you think about Billy Bob Thornton's narration on this past week's episode." I'm like, "Oh, well, there goes the mystery of it." But what I did not expect was the Peter and the Wolf. It was brilliant. I mean, just that music, first of all, is so iconic, but it's actually kind of funny. I don't even really remember seeing it, but I saw the Sesame Street version of Peter and the Wolf. Like, that's the only reason that I even know this. But the music just stood out to me. Like, I remember the music because it's so iconic, just in its execution. And so, showing the bird was Emmett, and then I think, was it the frog was Ray? I know the grandfather was Cy, the shotgun was the people that are working for Varga, and then Varga himself was the wolf, and then Gloria turns out to be Peter. So, I don't know, I love first of all, the music. It was brilliant. Just these little moments where all of a sudden you'd see them and their music would start playing. I'm just like, oh, this is so cool. But just that setup, I mean, you've got Billy Bob Thornton doing the narration. You've got just the Peter and the Wolf reference, and just in general is awesome. But it does kind of fit, kind of with their personalities. Oh yeah, the cat was, what's her face? Wangle? I think. Whatever the name of Ray's girlfriend is. So, yeah, I find that very brilliant. I love how they utilized it throughout the episode. It's not just something they brought up and then took away. Just throughout most of the episode, they just kept on bringing it up, and then, of course, it ends with more narration from Billy Bob Thornton at the end of it, talking about grandfather saying to Peter, "You better stay away from that. Stay away from the woods, or else the wolf might come and get you," and then saying Peter's not afraid of any wolves. So, just sort of, I guess, building up the fact that Gloria, even though the chief said stay away from this and, leave it alone, she's not going to. She is committed. She's going to figure this out. So, let's talk about some of the more story elements, though. First of all, we'll talk about Ray. We see him at the beginning of this episode going into a bank pretending to be Emmett, and we see him like convincing the bank manager, which is actually kind of funny because at first it seemed like he didn't know what he was doing, and then all of a sudden he started to realize, wait a minute, I've got power here, and so he's just, maybe I need to take my money somewhere else. And the bank manager's just like, just calm down there, Mr. Sussy. I'll get your stuff. And all of a sudden he started realizing I got a ton of power, and so he just started abusing it. He's like, maybe get me 10 grand, and just like this fits with his personality. He isn't used to being treated this way. He isn't used to being treated with this kind of respect, and so the moment he gets it, he's like, I'm gonna use this. And of course, he takes it out to his girlfriend, whose name I will now look up, because I can't just call her Swangle, because it doesn't sound right. Nikki. Nikki is her name. The power of the internet. So he takes the money out to Nikki, but of course, because she's looking for big bucks, she's like, why'd you just take 10,000? So clearly she's not happy with just getting that bit of money. He, of course, sees this as, oh, this is enough to hold us for now. Um, but we do see throughout most of this episode, we see him sort of like experiencing some stuff. The first thing is we see Gloria comes in to ask him about what happened with Maurice LeFay. Uh, and so, finding out that he's dead, finding out that he's the one that broke into Ennis's place. And so she's asking, and of course she sees the Stussy and tries to make the connection. And of course he's just trying to like deflect it off, like, oh, what a coincidence, maybe he was my cousin. Probably not, but who knows, maybe. And he's just like trying to sort of push her out the door. And so we see that really does sort of have a bit of an effect on him. Like, holy crap, they're starting to connect it to me. It's not as far away from me as I thought. You could tell he thought that everything would just sort of go away. He had nothing to do with it. Nikki was gonna say it was just an accident, and so that was gonna be all it was. But now he's starting to realize, oh, wait a minute, never mind, maybe not. And then on top of that, when he leaves, they first of all they fire him because he's seeing Nikki, and it was kind of funny actually because he would much rather like be with Nikki than have his job, and so they're just like, all right, we'll give you 10 minutes to clean out your desk. He's like, oh, thank you. It's like, wait, what? You're thanking them for firing you? What? But in his mind, he's thinking, well, at least Nikki's not getting involved. But of course, then he leaves, and then Cy has gotten in his car for some reason. I don't know how he managed to do it, but he put like what's it called? The little tire traps on his car. I guess because he's from a parking company, maybe he just had them lying around. But he goes outside, and there's Cy just like pointing at him, and then the music for the grandfather's playing, and so then he goes and opens the door, gets in, rolls down his window, points some more, and then leaves. And I'm just like, this is so childish. But I guess finally the reality of the fact that he lost his job gets to him, because then you see him drunk somewhere. And Nikki, meanwhile, I'm not sure if that was her father she was with, but I guess he was supposed to meet her parents maybe, or he was supposed to meet this guy for some reason. But because all of this happened, he just decides to go get drunk, and so she's there all alone without him. And it's making him look bad in front of whoever this guy's supposed to be. So I can't remember because it's been like 2 episodes since we've seen them together. But I think she did mention something about meeting her father or her parents or something like that. So I'm going to assume that's who it was. But on to Emmett's side of the story, / Cy, because we see, I think, isn't it VM is his name? I know his last name's Varga, so I'm just going to call him Varga for now. But we see him, his people are much more involved in the company. They're still there. The Russian guy and the Asian guy are still there. And we see just how much, like, it's starting to affect both Emmett and Cy. Just that nervousness of them being around. So Cy ultimately gets called up by this police officer that Gloria sees when she goes to see Ray because of the accident, that Cy had caused. So she's asking him all these questions like, oh, if you know who, we just know that the Jeep that hit the cars, was used by this company. So if you could just tell me who the driver was, who was using it that day. And of course, Cy's trying to deflect it and just like, oh, I'll just ask, see who it is, and I'll get back to you. And so he's just trying to force her out the door because, one, he's the one that was driving the Jeep, so that part of it obviously is a big part of why he wants to get her out of there. But also, you can see that just having a police officer with those 2 guys that work for Varga in there, it makes him extremely nervous. Like, you could see in the scene, what should be making him more nervous is the fact that he's the guilty party. But he keeps, like, looking over at them like, holy crap, what are they going to think that we got a police officer in here? Like, he's so worried about them, he's hardly even thinking about the fact that he's the one that's responsible. That's not his focus. So, I don't know, I just find that very interesting that that was more worrying to him, was those people, than the fact that he's the guilty party. But he does end up getting her out of there, and the guys are still just hanging around. You can see they're very intimidating looking. But on the other side, though, with Varga, we see first of all, we see him at the beginning when he gets introduced as the wolf. We see him eating in a restaurant, and then he goes and sets down this mat and starts puking into a toilet. which at the time I was eating, so did not help. Um, but yeah, it just he started eating and then he threw up and then he got out mouth, I guess some like spray, mint spray maybe. And so we see him go to Emmett's house to talk to him more about the business and the plans that they have, and apparently he wants to become partners with Emmett, and Emmett of course doesn't want any of that. He's like, no, no, you have no part of my business. We took your money, we tried to give it back to you, but you didn't take it, so that's all I can do. But we see that he has like this little speech, and a lot of information gets revealed about Varga in this because we see that not only has he been looking up Emmett, he's also been spying on him, tapping his phone calls. He's very interested in Emmett, and he starts talking about how there's a storm coming. People are coming with pitchforks, and they're gonna take over, and it's all these people who, sorry, that was a bug. There's all these people who just want their money, and they're gonna look at Emmett and say, he's the one with the money. And he said, look at me. I fly first class. What is that bug's deal? Don't leave me alone. He's like, I don't fly first class. I fly coach. Look at my jacket. It looks ratty. I drive a semi-nice car. Look at you. Between the two of us, who do you think is the rich one? But of course he said in his fancy British accent. um, but he's asking that question, and the answer is, of course, Emmett's the one that looks rich, and that's all the people he says care about. And so he's trying to show Emmett, this is how you're supposed to live. You're supposed to live out of the light, into the shadows, away from the spotlight. So whenever the people rise up and say, enough is enough, and we're going to take back our money, he's not the first one they go to. They go to somebody who's more obviously rich. And so that's kind of, I guess, what he's trying to sell Emmett on. Is just that thought of, you don't want to be the one in the spotlight. You don't want to be the one that people focus on, which is a very interesting concept. And you can tell Emmett is sort of buying into it, like, he does have a little bit of a point there. But at the same time, he's still kind of resisting because he's still kind of creeped out by this guy and what he's doing in his company. But we see after he eats dinner at Emmett's house, and this is before he goes and talks to him, we see him puking in the bathroom there as well. So kind of curious to see why that is. Maybe he just is anemic, or whatever that's called, bulimic. I should probably know this. I don't know why he keeps throwing up his food, but it's pretty nasty. So that's about it for the Emmett and Varga storyline. Like I said, though, we do find out that he's apparently been tapping his phone calls. He knows all about the feud that's going on between him and his brother. And so when he finally convinces Emmett forces Emmett to join forces with him, he does ask, will your brother be a problem? Will the girl be a problem? So I'll be interested to see kind of, I guess, it's turning a bit more into Varga versus Ray rather than Emmett versus Ray. So that's kind of interesting. Then finally, obviously, the last story to talk about is Gloria's. She first gets reprimanded by the new chief at her police station because of her trip, because of the fact that she's looking into this case that he's like, it's an obvious, it was a break-in. If this guy did it, maybe he just did it because he wanted to, there's no real case here. And so he's very upset with her, but she's just like, I don't care. It just sort of walks out like, I'm going to keep looking into this. So we see her looking into it some more. She goes and looks at the dead body. She finds the parole board thing. She goes into Ray's office, sees the Stussy connection. But while she's there, she also meets that police officer woman that's looking into the accident with Cy's Jeep. And so she heads back home. And there's at one point, like right after the Billy Bob Thornton narration about the wolf, or about Peter not being scared of the wolf, she's tucking in her son, and all of a sudden she gets a knock at the door, and so she answers it, and it's the police officer woman. And first I was like, what is this woman's deal? Like, this is kind of creepy. But then she starts explaining that after she was done at the parole office, she went to talk to Cy, and that's when she realized that one of the people whose car was hit, the car was owned by his brother, and on top of that, the murder that happened at Eden Valley also had the same last name. And she's like, the brother that owns the company lives in Eden Prairie. And all of a sudden you just see this look on Gloria's face like she just made the connection. And I'm just like, holy crap, she's figuring it out. And the really exciting thing about this is I thought this was going to take at least a couple more episodes before she started piecing it together. But we're in the 4th episode and she's already starting to piece together everything. You know, she's already gone and talked to Ray, you know, after she figured out about the prints from Maurice. And so now she's talking to Ray, which means she's already made that connection. She saw the Stussy, so now she's like, okay, so there might be a little bit of a connection here. You know, there's definitely more than just a coincidence. And then this woman comes in with this information about Emmett living in Eden Prairie, and Ennis lived in Eden Valley. And now it's all of a sudden just like, yeah, there is your obvious connection. There's your answer of, is this connected in any way? Now she's like, it's gotta be. And so I'm really excited to see exactly what she's going to do next, how she's going to handle the case from here. But, I mean, all in all, it's a very, very solid, very good episode. The Peter and the Wolf stuff was awesome. You know, that all that stuff on the outside, the music, the just the semi-weird stuff that's going on, some of the connections that they're making, a lot of it is a lot of fun. Sometimes it is just funny. Sometimes it really is kind of artistic in the way it's handled, but I mean, this was a really good episode, and obviously missing tonight's episode is always frustrating. But I'm looking forward to catching up and watching this new episode because it's already getting good. And most of the time it does take about 4 or 5 episodes for the actual, I guess, action. I don't even want to really call it action because it's more just like the actual fighting starts. You know, there's this build up with the story as people are figuring out stuff, people are making decisions, and all of a sudden this one moment happens, and for the rest of the season it's just this action of people trying to one up each other and people dying in the process, and it's always intense but a lot of fun and sometimes funny, sometimes really dark, but always enjoyable. So really looking forward to it. One final thing I do want to talk about though, because it's something that I find very, very strange. And I don't know if it'll be explained or if they're just treating it like a joke right now. But I did notice at first, you know, there's that moment where Gloria's trying to get into Ennis's shop. And she's standing outside the automatic door. She's like waving her arms and stuff, but it's not opening. And so it's just like, what's going on? Well, then it happened again later when they went to his store for something else. I can't remember why they were there. And then in this episode, she goes to the parole place. And she's like waving her arms and nothing happens, and then the door opens later. And then she goes into the bathroom and it's got the motion hand sanitizer or hand soap and motion sink and motion blow dryer, and she's doing it and it's not happening. I'm just like, what is this? Like, wait a minute, why isn't it? What? And I don't know if they're just treating it like a joke or if there's actually some sort of explanation behind it, but I'm curious to see why none of this is working for her, because we clearly see the stuff works. Like the lady cop that was in the bathroom with her goes up, just instantly starts soap, washing her hands, gets the blow dryer, and she's sitting there for a good 2-3 minutes like, come on, and it's just, it doesn't work for her. So maybe she's a ghost, and only people can see her, but the motion things can't because she doesn't actually have motion. They did have aliens last season, so I doubt it, but it's a possibility. I don't know. It would be extremely, I don't know. It seems stupid and weird, but could they go there? It seems a bit odd to just throw in your show like, oh yeah, motion sensor doesn't work on her. It's a joke. I feel like there has to be some sort of reason, but anyway, I digress. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below, and as always, please, please, please keep the spoilers away. You know, obviously I missed tonight's episode, but I am going to watch it as soon as I catch up on my other shows, so please don't tell me anything. I want to be surprised. Even the Billy Bob Thornton thing, even though I love hearing him and knowing that he's going to be on the episode, I prefer not to know, so I can be even more surprised when it actually happens. But, you know, it is the minor thing, but it's still something that it does give me a bit of information that I wish I didn't have it prior. So, but thank you guys for watching, and leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more Fargo reviews. See you guys at the next one. Peace out.